Okay, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Unexpected Season 5 Episode 12, Birth Was Supposed to Be Happy. Start off with Jenna and Aiden. Jenna and her stepmom are taking a morning yoga class that Jenna booked, and in the confessional, Heather says she never imagined doing a yoga class with her ex's new wives, but Matt and Heather both agreed as long as everyone's willing to move on, it can go smooth. Jenna and her mom and her stepmom really enjoyed the beach, and when they get back home, Aiden is still being annoying and not coming downstairs and is still hibernating. And in the confessional, Jenna says that Aiden is sucking the life out of everything and just making this trip not fun when it's supposed to be a family beach trip that everyone was supposed to enjoy. And I really hate that for Jenna because I think it really shows where Aiden stands in the relationship and that he's really not trying, and I think this is an eye-opener for Jenna, and it shows that her and Aiden's relationship is over with. And going back to the scene, Heather kisses Luca on the cheek and she has lipstick on, and Jenna gets very upset about it, saying don't kiss him while you have lipstick on, and makes a big deal out of it. And going to the confessional with Matt and Heather, they talk about how it can be difficult to deal with Jenna when she's in one of her moods and she's dealing with Aiden, and sometimes she can project her anger towards other people. Then going back to the same scene, Luca has a metal fork in his hand, and Heather was trying to get it out of Luca's hand because Luca is one and it can be very dangerous for him to have a metal fork in his hand just running around. And Heather says something to Jenna about it, and Jenna says he likes eating with a fork and just to leave him alone. Obviously that can't happen because he's running around with a metal fork that he could potentially stab his eye out with. Even Kathy, Jenna's stepmom, is trying to express to her that, that's dangerous, and even if he does like eating with a fork, he shouldn't be running around with it. It'd been one thing if it was like one of those little plastic kids fork, but no, this was like a full metal fork. And Jenna ends up getting irritated and she goes upstairs. And later on, Heather goes upstairs to check on Jenna. Jenna doesn't answer the door and she just ignores Heather. And in the confession with Matt and Heather, Matt says that they don't really know what's going on with Jenna. She's not one to air out her dirty laundry to other people or to talk about what's going on in her relationship. It's disheartening for the family to see because they really want to see Jenna happy and enjoy her time and really enjoy being around each other. But when you're constantly trying to pay attention to someone like Aiden or get his attention, you'll never be able to enjoy what's in the moment. Next, we move on to Taylor and Noah. Taylor's in the car FaceTiming her mom about Noah because Noah tested positive for COVID. He woke up in the middle of the night with body aches and severely sick. And Taylor ended up convincing him to go get COVID tested, and he tested positive. But Taylor doesn't test positive, neither does her daughter. And Noah was throwing up all the time, and she got really scared because she didn't want to have to go through that, especially being 40 weeks pregnant. And it's only 5 days away from her induction date, and Taylor also wants to do her birth naturally, but because of her thyroid problems and her being this far along and still not gone into labor, she has to get induced. She's tried doing dances and eating pineapples and doing all types of stuff, but the baby just won't come. Going to the confession with her mom says that she wants her to get induced even though Noah has COVID, just because she's already overdue and her placenta is starting to die out and the baby is starting to lose weight because she's 40 weeks pregnant. And I believe most pregnancies usually end somewhere around 37 to 38 weeks pregnant. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she's overdue and it's time for the baby to come, whether they're ready or not. Going back to the scene, she hangs up the phone with her mom and calls Noah to give an update on the situation, and her and Adeline are going to quarantine away from him. Even though they've been in the same presence as him, it's still important they quarantine away from each other since he tested positive and they did. And she's really sad since Noah can't be there and he'll be at home worried about her and she'll be at the hospital worried about him. It's just a really terrible situation, and I feel like we really haven't got to see Taylor as much as an individual. We've always seen her just with the rest of her family, so I'm glad we get to see her move away from that a little bit. And as I say that, we move on to a segment with Tiara, Ella, and Dee, Tara and Layla, and Taylor and Noah. Tara and Taylor FaceTime, and in the confessional, Tara talks about how she's very glad that her and Taylor are on good terms because that's her family and Christmas is almost coming and it's already hard enough not having Tiara there, so she's just glad that her and Taylor are on good terms, especially since they always grew up so close together. And while they're on FaceTime, Taylor talks about Noah having COVID and how he's extremely sick. Now she even had to take him to the ER last night because he was so dehydrated from throwing up so much. And even worse about the whole situation, Ella's birthday party is that week and Noah has COVID, and also Taylor gets induced on Ella's birthday party, so she can't go, which really sucks for her daughter Adeline because they all want the kids to spend time together. Then we switch to Tiara and Dee and Ella in Inslee. They have all came to Kentucky for Ella's birthday party so she can spend time with her family and be around people who she knows and loves. But retaining to Taylor coming to the party, they plan ahead and they didn't know there was going to be drama, so they're still invited, but she's not super excited about Taylor coming. And Melissa, Ty and Tiara's mom, comes up to the hotel to meet them. In the confession with her mom talks about how she doesn't have a close bond with Inslee since they live so far away as she did with Ella, because Tiara was at her house every single day since she was only 15, and it's weird for her. And going back to the scene, they talk about Ella's birthday party and how it's going to be at the Pumpkin Patch, and her mom asked her who's all invited, and she said she didn't have a specific list who she all invited, but she did invite, I guess, close family members. Then Tiara brings up how Noah has COVID and how Taylor won't be able to come to the birthday party, and they talk about how that sucks for Adeline. But going to the confessional, Tiara says that it's karma that Noah got COVID after what happened with the whole baby nursery drama, and it's honestly comical at this point because it's just ridiculous. Like, I'm not sure how much longer they're gonna drag this out, but I'll be happy when it's over with. And I also kind of felt like it was messed up to say about that Noah and having COVID, just because COVID is deadly, and I don't think it was appropriate for the time. And it's even gone to the point where Melissa and Candace have had a back and forth, and Candace said in text message that you're dead to me, don't ever come back to my house, and Melissa says your wish is my demand, even though I believe it's my wish is your command, but whatever. Melissa goes on to say, when you hurt my kids, you hurt me. This is so dumb, and if everyone would have just laughed it off and not made it this big of a deal, we would have not been talking about this. Like, go put this energy towards something else, like your kids or something. It's just dumb. Next, we move on to Emerson and Mason. Emerson has been at Mason's house for one night, and she left because her mom's rules were too strict, because Emerson and Mateo were welcome, but Mason wasn't, and because they have a child together, it was going to be very hard to parent when one parent isn't allowed in a household. Her mom ended up giving her ultimatum: you can either follow the rules or get out. And Emerson left, and she's happy with her decision. And then we switch to a scene with Erica inside. Erica talks about how she doesn't feel like Mason's house is safe. She even calls it Ernie's halfway house, and she's just so worried about Emerson because she feels like it's not a safe, stable home, and Mason's mom has drug issues that she has dealt with in the past. And Erica did this to herself. I hate how judgmental she is towards Mason's home, because she's not all that better. Everyone has a past, whether we want to accept it or not. Maybe Erica hasn't been on drugs, maybe done drugs before, but don't you have like 5 baby daddies or something like that? Someone could judge you off of that, but a lot of people choose not to, because that doesn't amount to who you are as a person in this day and time. And then also, I feel like when Erica judges Shannon, it says more about Erica than it does about Shannon, in my opinion. I have no idea what Erica has dealt with in her life, but she needs to deal with it instead of projecting it onto her own daughter. And going back to Emerson and Mason, in the confessional with Mason and his parents, Mason talks about how Emerson did not want to move in with him initially. She just wanted to stay a couple of nights until things smoothed over at her mom's house. Then it turned into Emerson moving in with him, because Emerson's mom just wanted to do the absolute most and be in control. And Mason's mom says that Erica's the most judgmental human being, and I 100% agree with Mason's mom, because I feel like a lot of people can judge Erica because of her weird beliefs. And I'm not talking about religious beliefs, I'm talking about the weird projecting that she does on other people. People can judge her off for that, which they do, but I don't think it's fair to judge someone off their past. We're judging Erica off her present, and that is the difference between Shannon and Erica. And going back to the scene, Emerson is talking to Mason, and she talks about how her mom said there'll be new rules if she comes back. And in my opinion, Erica is just allowing to Emerson to try to get control of her again, but I'm glad Emerson is now falling for it. Next, we move back around to Jenna and Aiden. Jenna and her mom go out for ice cream, and Heather wants to find out what's going on with Jenna and Aiden just to see where they are since Jenna really hasn't talked about it. They get these milkshakes that have like all these toppings on it. I call it stunt food because I feel like it's only pretty for aesthetics. I have no idea how they ate that, but that's not the point. Going back to the scene, Heather asks, what's going on with you and Aiden, and what's the situation? And Jenna talks about how Aiden didn't really want Heather there. She doesn't directly say that, but she kind of hints at it, and Heather picks up onto it and starts to cry. And Jenna has to console her mom, and Jenna says that her mom has never really been an adult, and she's always had to be there for her and console her, and it's really stressful for her. And also her mom cries a lot. And I see how Jenna and her mom do have a dysfunctional relationship, because when your child has to be an adult and you kind of step in that child place and they unwillingly have to be an adult, it definitely makes a relationship more complicated than it even has to be. And once Jenna finished consoling her mom talks about how she doesn't want to see Jenna go down this path with Aiden, where she's just miserable in a relationship and she's never really happy and at peace with herself. And through this whole conversation, once Jenna had to start consoling her mom, Jenna just completely zoned out and looks like she just really isn't mentally there. I don't know, maybe I'm looking a little too deep into it because they do film for kind of long hours. So maybe she was just tired and wanted this scene to be over with so she can go home and relax or something. I don't know, but she does say she is going to have a conversation with Aiden about where their relationship is. Next, we move on to Noah and Taylor, and they in the car going to the hospital so Taylor can get induced. And Noah's coming with her. The hospital said that if he doesn't have any symptoms and he is feeling good, then he can be. And they're both very excited. In the confessional, the producer asks Noah, did he pass out when Adeline was born? And he says no. Then Taylor goes on to say that he wasn't there at the time because he was immature and he also had a girlfriend. He didn't have a girlfriend when Taylor and him were fooling around together. He had a girlfriend only while Taylor was pregnant. And he says it was one of the biggest regrets of his life and he wished he could do it over again. And going back to the scene, she's really nervous and hope she doesn't test positive for COVID, and they're going to do a COVID test on her sometime later. And later on, she's texting her mom, telling her mom that she tested positive for COVID, but she's even more nervous now because she's not sure how it's going to work with having COVID. Are they going to let them keep the baby? Is the baby going to get COVID? And just really nervous about how all of that is going to work. And in the confessional with her mom is really nervous because you hear all the horror stories about mother fighting for their life and their baby's life when they're in labor because they have COVID. It's just a really scary thing for both of them. Next, we move on to Jenna and Aiden. Jenna and Aiden are going to the beach to get some alone time, and Jenna is excited, but Aiden says he's not excited at all, just having his normal negative attitude about life. And they are going to the beach to talk about their relationship problems. And when they get to the beach, Jenna's just asking general questions like, how are you? How's your day going? And Aiden is having this negative attitude saying, what do you mean? Just kind of not really answering her question, just kind of not even giving her eye contact, just dodging her as a whole. Then Jenna asks, do you feel better about my mom coming with us on the vacation? He says no. And he was never okay with it to begin with, and he thought it was just going to be a vacation with people who he knew was coming, and he did not know Heather was coming. So I guess that was his whole problem. He didn't know Heather was coming, so he wasn't prepared to deal with Heather. Jenna tries to get him to look at it from a different perspective by saying, how would you feel if I was on your family vacation and I was just acting miserable and being negative all the time for no reason? And he just tells her to shut up because he knows that she's right. He just doesn't want to hear it nor even be open to listen to it. Jenna goes on to express to him that you aren't there for me like the way I need you to be, and Aiden doesn't see anything wrong with their relationship. He says that Jenna's trying to make it bad when it isn't. And in the confessional with Aiden and Jenna, Aiden says that a vacation is supposed to be fun and spend a lot of money, but he did not think it do neither of those, and I guess it was not a vacation in his perspective, especially since Heather is there and he only gets 1 week off out of the entire year. And Aiden doesn't think their relationship is bad. He thinks it's great, and Jenna thinks it's terrible because she feels like he's not there for her and he's just kind of cold and standoffish, and they have different perspectives about it. And Aiden gets offended by that and he walks out of the confession, and Jenna starts to cry, and I feel like all she wants to do is be heard. At least, even if you don't change, at least be willing to hear it and just don't shut me down as soon as I start to talk. And at this point, Jenna doesn't know where the relationship is, but at this point in time, she just wants it to be done and over with. I think so as well, because Aiden obviously isn't giving Jenna what she needs and wants, and once you're no longer gaining anything, I think it is time that you remove yourself from the relationship, because at that point, it's just one-sided. Lastly, we have Lily and Lawrence. They're going to look at a wedding video that Lily's sister found, and despite the move and how stressful it was, they're still going forward with their wedding. And she says that even though they argue sometimes, she needs that for entertainment, I guess, because it makes the relationship not boring, which I'm not sure if it's a good thing or bad thing. I believe it's a bad thing, something she should definitely go and work on, but we're just gonna go along with it. Lily and Lawrence haven't set a budget yet for the wedding, even though they're going to go look at venues, and I think at that point they should have a budget set, but Lawrence is thinking maybe 10,000-20,000, and Lily's thinking more than that. I'm not sure how much more, but she's thinking a lot more, it seems like. I'm not sure how much weddings should cost or what's like the average cost for one, but 10,000-20,000 doesn't seem like that much in my mind for the type of wedding Lily is thinking about. I believe she wants something like extravagant, something big, something like Kim Kardashian would have or something, but she does not have Kim Kardashian money, so I doubt it'll play out like that. And Lily and Lawrence have never talked about it, even though Lawrence says he has probably brought it up before, but anytime Lily gets a moment to herself, she's kind of just always spaced out and in her own little world, so she probably isn't hearing what Lawrence is saying to her, and she ends up apologizing to Lawrence for doing that sometime. And going back to the scene, the wedding venue is a golf course that has like this little reception wedding area, I guess you could call it, and we don't get to see the full thing until next episode, and that was actually the end of the episode. Tell me what you thought of the episode. I give it a 6 out of 10. It was kind of boring, but it also kept me interested. The same aspect, because everyone kind of pulled their weight. Like, comment, subscribe if you want, and bye.